presentation from you. Please take your seat afterwards. Good afternoon. I was watching the live stream. It works. So I wish nice evening for those who are in daylight. I would like to introduce you to A Touch with Reality concerning composite and the choice of profession. Each our child, which an educational counselor meets, has their important internal world, and sometimes their problems overgrow them. Sometimes they can handle them, but composite comes into picture from the position of digitization of the counseling system and from the position of modernization of the counseling system at elementary schools, and the choice of profession at an elementary school is one of the most dominant areas which we are dealing with, starting from the 8th or even 7th grade. Some children come to the first grade knowing what they want to be, and some they don't know even in the 9th grade before handing in the applications. But let's look closer at the interlink. The educational objective that each elementary school has is the development of career development, and that's the responsibility of all teachers and expert workers, not only in school but also in counseling facilities. And the previous speakers also pointed out that in counseling centers, the professional orientation is a very is a service that is sought for, and this is a very important point of networking. I enter elementary schools directly, and I will be talking about the educational counselor, because that's the person who guarantees the counseling system and has it there for 52 years. The educational counselor sometimes feels like this white figure, because they have many possibilities and don't know what to do. But composite comes with something completely different from what until now the counselors had until now. Presently, educational counselor processes Proforient, software agenda, testing 9, testing 5, then they work with software application which is online, and there is the digital platform Composite, and there is another product, and that's Profisme. If you count it well, we are digital gurus at schools, because we have to work with 5 applications, and I have to conclude all applications want something, only Composite gives something to the educational counselors. Because for the other applications we only enter data which is statistically processed somewhere, but the educational counselor has absolutely nothing from this. And Composite provides the professional background, which 52 years ago was in the form of a journal, periodical, that gradually got lost. And the hunger for information Composite satisfied with this digital platform. When to start helping the pupils when we are talking about the choice of profession? This is our children from the 1st to 9th grade. We want them to be happy and smiling. Presently, we don't have a lot of time, and we are grateful for every tool that saves our time, which Composite definitely does. And I use it starting from the 6th grade, because it's not only my idea, but also the requirement of the children, because children said they wanted this issue to be dealt with starting from the 6th grade, which I consider an acceptable time when we can cooperate, collaborate on this topic in a longer time. And when we look at what the feedback from the 9th grade students, they met 5 and more time with the educational counselor, which is a lot of time. And if this space was spread for all pupils, not only children from SVBP, the decisions would be more information-based. How composite helps, this was demonstrated by our colleagues on the example of William, how they enter the space, but we need to speak about a specific child that sits in front of me and wonders where to go. I can use several possibilities. The red ones on the left, the panel offers several options of cooperation, and that's working in group, working with an individual. When I work with a pupil, I can only work in the external environment, but also in the internal environment. And what is interesting, we have categories, maybe frequently asked questions, which are repeated and we perhaps don't even suspect they need to be dealt with. Then there is career counseling. And what I say in conclusion, composite does not replace an expert. Composite only assists the expert for them to be able to obtain information faster, in a more modern way, more objectively, and to have more time for the pupil themselves. This is the essence, and this is what composite provides. I will talk about this tomorrow at the conference when we will be talking about the evaluation of educational counselors, which are very positive. So I take the liberty to generalize that composite also took roots with the educational counselors themselves. And who do we do it for? For our children, because they are the target. We want them to learn about themselves in a modern form. If they work, whether in the digital form, which our children like very much, or if they work in groups, where in interactions they get feedback about themselves. I think it's very essential for children to make the decision in a responsible way, to think about the elementary school, what profession would be good for them. We are talking with children from special educational needs, perhaps something at the secondary school, university. When they come to a job, no employer will create individual programs. They need to join the labor process just like any other person. So they need to be able to handle their special needs. And the professions that are appropriate for the limitations they have, they can find in composite. They can also find some background where my colleagues at the counseling center from me as an educational counselor obtain some pre-filled or pre-summarized report what I as an educational counselor did with the pupil. And I think parents are very important. Parent has the greatest influence on the choice of profession. Whether the influence is correct or not, that's a matter of discussion, and it's not our task to evaluate the parents. But I think this is where the parents gain space for objectivity as to what their child is appropriate for, and they also obtain information about the labor market, which is all in one point. They do not have to Google things out and sit at the computer for a week. We do the selection for them. And when the parent get here and get to the category of career counseling, the information from the labor market are those which they need to have for their child to be able to talk to them and to realistically say that the choice of profession is a compromise between what we know about the pupil and what the labor market offers. And the child has to identify with it. We sometimes have the luck to have five-star work. We do it gladly, with enthusiasm. It became part of our work, but unfortunately there are also one-star jobs where we go only to survive. And that's the real world, and the children have to identify with it. Parents get some guarantee of information in the form of composite. It's not only something thrown on the internet by someone, but the information available here is a guarantee that they can rely on it. They obtain information there. They know who to address to be able to make the decision as good as possible, because the choice of the profession is one of the key moments that happens at the elementary school, whether through a secondary school or a university. And what next? That will be tomorrow. This is only a teaser for tomorrow, and we will see each other tomorrow. And it's about time to start discussing, to have digitization purposeful, useful, and to be useful for those who will use it day to day. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. You don't have to switch off the mic, you can take it with you, Mrs. Dianowska. You just pick your chair and please stay here, because there is one more presentation, and this time this is concerned with the importance of VUDPAP in the context of the national project. It will be composite, of course, but the authors this time are three: Mr. Štefan Matula, Alena Kopáňová, and Mrs. Eva Smíková, who are present here. On behalf of all of them, Mrs. Alena Kopáňová will speak. Please keep the mic then. Thank you for the floor. Good afternoon. Let me, on behalf of the guarantors of the activity of the project of the comprehensive counseling system, summarize or set some outputs, the importance for the professional counseling and research activity of VUDPAP in the context of sustainability of the national project, how we fulfilled our visions, how we want to maintain and develop them. Next slide, please, where we are trying to summarize, kind of. Excuse me. No. Thank you. So, WUDPAP, as I will introduce you to the hierarchy or structure in which we were trying to implement composite in the national project through the Research Institute of Child Psychology and Pathopsychology. The main three activities: education, innovation of counseling and therapy, and standardization and collection of data, that is the research. In individual activities as presented, we gradually fulfilled the partial objectives. We were trying to educate as many of pedagogic and educational workers as possible. We were trying, using the scheduler, organize their work and network them, offer them modern form of education such as e-learning. In counseling and therapy, we focus on sharing good practices, because we know that in counseling centers there are high-quality experts, but in other regions they are unknown, and through composite, this sharing could be done and good practices could be shared. We managed to support the supervision of expert activities by education in supervision, which we consider are very important measurable indicators of this project. And we looked and found tools for evaluation of counseling and therapeutic process. And as for research, the broadest thing what was offered to us was the toy for us, like screening research. And we built the dataset basis for the applied psychological research of the child, which is the primary activity of our research institute. Briefly, why digitization? We are happy that digitization reached the counseling process. We're trying this area to measure some functionalities of the 21st century and to make the entire process more efficient. Technical features helped us a lot. We were trying to turn digitization so that it made our work more efficient. But we psychologists will be always there to make sure that digitization doesn't enter the lives of our children too early, and that it works with their motoric development hand in hand. There is a possibility to come to contact with a broader group of people, wider palette of tests for educational counselor. And by sharing the professional contents to contribute to sharing good practices, early information, finding information, which was mentioned many times. The previous speakers already mentioned the composite works in the public and internal part. We managed to increase the computer skills of all our expert employees. For those who feared computers, became routine computer users, able to get the results and use the innovative methods as they were offered to them. Briefly, I will go to three important areas that the project addressed with the following application output to the activity of the Research Institute of Child Psychology and Pathopsychology. Education was offered modernization through common program of continuous education, such as sessions and distance forms, where we created platform for sharing good practices, video courses and e-learning. In fact, we created space for the availability of education for new or beginners, pedagogical and expert workers who come to the counseling centers, or for students who are interested in working in counseling centers. We are trying to support e-learning education because that's the way. Excellent feedback was from the colleagues who were to take part in the research training course in Košice, but they needed to see the previous training course through a brief e-learning session. We see that it has great influence on the efficiency of education, and accessibility is great. You send a link, information that there is something new, and also Slovakia knows that. I would like to ask Eva Smíková now, who is the guarantor for the activity of counseling or innovation of our counseling methods, to briefly comment on the slides.
Pani Kobaniová, ja vás poprosím, rovno si nájdete miesto. Mrs. Kopaneva, please don't leave the stage. Just find your seat somewhere because you will be part of the panel. Good evening. I noticed that when we talk and we talk about a project, we get into this project jargon, and we don't want to digitize the contact with people. Of course, we want to keep it human to human, but nevertheless, we have several tools that would help us to do that, to help our colleagues so that they see the effects of their work. And one of the tools is a program or software by Mangold, and our colleagues had an opportunity to go through the training. It's basically a software that helps us to analyze a video that we would shoot from a therapy session or an intervention activity, and since our observational abilities of people is limited, this software allows us to to evaluate it in a better way. Let's say also through a graph or through some other tools. Then another tool that I would like to mention is the Comdi, but it will be explained tomorrow in more details. It's not just a counseling for profession, but also a counseling in terms of just general direction of the student and the general talent of the student. And what we also tried as part of the counseling, and what we found working very well, is that we are able to monitor the professional activities related to counseling, and also to add to add value. Because very often we meet, we have experience with some NGOs and some experts who are claiming that we are the best in what we do. So our objective was to show that we are effective in the counseling that we provide, that we actually are able to help these kids, and that our intervention would bring fruits. My colleague Eva already mentioned about supervision and sharing the best practices, so that was what we already talked about. So thank you. So that much about the activities, and now about research. Since we are a research institute for child psychology and pathopsychology, as my pre-speaker Pavlina and Matteo explained, we have great data collection or great data set for our research work, and at the moment we are in the phase of brainstorming and searching where we should take our research, or how to take it to the next step. So there is a dépistage which brings opportunities for cyclical research, or be it every 2 years or 3 years, or based on the requirements. Then what should be searched, or what kind of questionnaire should be used, which should be avoided, which should be supported, etc. And then we should also create room, or create conditions for further digitization. We will need new standards, and then we should also talk about the directions of the digitization and the research of children. We know that we have only a limited number of tools. Nevertheless, there might be some correlation, and we researchers we are able to find new links. So this is my last slide, and this is fit to the areas, or to the areas expertise of our research institute. And in all these areas, the composite has its application. But I have said that already. So as I said earlier, we mentioned the collection of data will be up to us. What to do with this collected data will be up to our courage and our vision. What kind of practical experience or practical output we can provide either to the Ministry of Education or to the counseling centers. For the methodological and research cabinet, there will be able to provide a better education, and we're proud of the supervision and that is running very well. Then also support for the expert activities. In Composite, we have one of the best analytical tools, and that is why this creates conditions for counseling or expert activities. And then we also have tools for monitoring, not to criticize anyone, but rather to improve what we do and to avoid avenues that are not leading to anything practical. And then the last thing is the Child Center. So it's a counseling center. We created tools for diagnostics of children with special education needs. These kids become clients in Composite as well. We also have contact with the counseling centers in the field. We don't have to write letters to them anymore, but rather we can connect them directly through Composite. And then, of course, also the sharing of the best practice as the basis of what's going on in the field and what kind of added value we could offer to the field. So, in conclusion, together with Mr. Matula and Mrs. Mikova, we concluded that to make it sustainable, this has to overlap with the practice, the collaboration of VUD, PAP, with the psychologists, special pedagogists, and social workers. This has been here also before the Composite, but now we can do it better. We will also try to make a sustainability of research knowledge. Then application research is conducted for the necessities coming from the practice, and then we're happy that this tool is a tool for research, and it can develop also the system of education and training, but then the system of education and training also has an effect on research. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. I would just like to say that this was Mrs. Melania Kopaniova and with Mrs. Dianovska. They are seated in the panel. Now we're going to have discussions. It will be more interactive. We will talk about this topic. We will hear about things that have not been said yet. So I would like to ask the other panelists, Mr. Stefan Grajcar. Mr. Grajcar, I prepared a share for you. I'll be close to you, so I'll have the microphone for you as well. The other two ladies have the mic already, so we'll pass it along. I would also like to ask Mr. Dalibor Maco, who has been invited to the panel, Mr. Kanowski, one of our speakers that we heard today. Mr. Stefan Matula, you have not delivered your presentation yet. Okay, only in the lobby. So I have some questions for you. Mrs. Anna Surova-Chulikova. I would also like to ask Mrs. Maria Slovikova to join us in the panel. Mr. Jiří Šimonek, speaker from earlier today, Mr. Juraj Široký. Okay, he's here. You are also invited, Mr. Andreas Edelman, Please find your seat as well. And okay, Mr. Pavel Shiroki. So thank you for taking or participating to the panel. So now we'll be talking about how to use composite because that will be the main question for us. I hope that you don't mind that I'll be facing you with my back from time to time because I'll be now representing you and asking questions on your behalf as well. So we heard a lot of presentations related to composite today. So perhaps we could start with the sectorial use of composite. If I may, Mr. Kanowski, I'll ask you the first question. What I found interesting was that you approached or you challenge the others to talk to the PhD students and to use the data collected in composites. So how can we use them? Well, in some topics, if you don't know about this very well collected data, that the PhD students put a lot of effort into collecting data on some topics. But for example, I have a PhD student who collects data about bullying, and it is really hard to do. But now I can direct her to this tool. So, for example, we can now compare data from different regions, let's say from Banska Bystrica and from elsewhere. So these researchers often pay a lot of effort into collecting the data. They contact people, just 150 people, and not knowing that there is a great data set. So it can be even anonymized data. It can be very well coded. The names doesn't really matter. But for example, we can look at let's say what role the social background plays in terms of the anxiety, or what is the impact of segregated settlements or in urban areas. We teach our students to quantify the data, and it is useless to collect the data when the data is already collected. It's ineffective. So now my ambition is to promote this also at the universities. Of course, it's not your fault. It's also our fault that we have not educated. Yeah, there's that such a thing exists. Also, so I would like to spread the word in the academia that such a thing exists, and I believe that this should be a tool that is commonly used. Ms. Matula, I remember one press conference that you took part in when you introduced this national project. You mentioned that the number of kids with special needs is on the increase. We also saw a map of Eastern Slovakia, or a map of Slovakia, and we saw that there is a particular problem in the east of Slovakia. So, is it possible to work on these kids on one-to-one basis, or we can work with them in general? Well, when you say these kids, we know what kind of kids you are talking about. Sometimes these are not kids. Sometimes these are a youth. Usually they have a darker skin. But I asked whether you can work with them on one-to-one basis, and whether these kids could be then role models for their environment. Yes, of course, it is possible to work with them on one-to-one basis. Some methods are applicable. Some we managed to improve prove if we can work with almost all children with a certain effect. And I have also some positive experience with what we managed to achieve with these kids. I'll give you two specific examples. One, there was a conference in Tale, north of Slovakia. There was a young person next to me in the conference room, and this guy, he said, "Well, we know each other." And then he said, "I know you." I told him, "I know you too," and then he admitted, "Well, I used to come to your club or to your to your club," and then I realized that he was one of my patients, and then I asked him what is his profession now, and he told me that he is the driver for the state secretary. So he was in a managing position, so to say, because he was driving a car. And then the second example, we had a kid. He was a ninth grader, and then at one moment he came. He had some problems with drug abuse, and then eventually he completed even higher education. He studied at the College of Saint Elizabeth, and then he was even awarded the award for the best final thesis, and now he is working somewhere in the South Africa, doing some South America, doing some social work. So yes, there are cases where we can help these kids, and we have also cases that those kids that we managed to help, now they have their own kids, and they have problems with their kids, and they come to our counseling centers. We see a question. Well, I would like to contribute to that. I don't share your enthusiasm in the collection of data. Let me say something. If 100 years ago we had a technology like we have today, we would never had this genius Kinsey's research that Kinsey, who is the founder of modern sexuology. So if you don't know his data collection methods, these were genius. He had 5 people, and he collected data by car through these five people. Today we're collecting the data the way you were suggesting. For example, I wouldn't dare to use the data from the composite. I have to collect my own data, and I have to be fully liable for that. Just for the illustration, one colleague of mine from Brno presented in the sexology days in Prague, in Bohnice. He presented a paper according to which some 60% of Czech men is zoophilic, and how he collected the data over the internet. So I looked at the specific instrument that he used for the data collection, and then when I looked at it, then I also wanted to fill in the questionnaires because those questions were so stupid that I would answer that I'm attracted by a bee or by a cat or by a mouse. So I can promise that I will never use the data from your composites. And if I want to do any serious research, I would collect data by myself and through the people that I would train them myself. Well, what you just said is not about data, but rather about the bad tool. Of course, if you don't have a good tool, then you cannot get a good data. You are right in the way that if a tool is produced and then the data is collected, and without any validity or validation or without any assessment, it is published to the world. Of course, this is not professional, but this is not the problem of the data. This is the lack of professionalism of the people that collect the data. So if you tell me that someone produced a stupid tool and now is making a stupid analysis, it's not an argument against the composite, but rather against the stupid tools used. So if there are standard tools that are used in the composite, and then if it is assessed if the tool is used as it was predicted, then it's absolutely different. Now, of course, just running around and collecting data, we do that as well. We do it for certain things. We quantify data, but for example, to do today to collect data from a sample of, let's say, 3,000 people, it would be extremely challenging. And then I have my doubts. If you train 5 people, okay, but usually this is done as an assignment to people collecting data over questionnaires in let's say student dorms or wherever. So whoever is collecting data, it doesn't really matter. You have to look at the reliability, viability, and then psychometric properties of that tools. I agree with you that some people do it in a stupid way, but it is not a problem of the data or the composite itself.
So it is a problem of stupid people who collect stupid data and provide it to your composite and try to answer my argument about Alfred Kinsey. Alfred Kinsey, there are at least 4 studies about the validity. I will tell you, it's just beliefs. I will send you a link where people did interviews with people who collected the data, how they collected it. At least 3 cases were that Kinsey's assistant came to a city and talked to one person who talked to him about his family friends. There are many myths, and they say how ingeniously someone done something in the 30s. There were interesting things. I don't want to cast doubt on it, but let's leave Kinsey aside. I wasn't speaking about composite. Whoever in composite or elsewhere collects data into a bad tool and produces results without analysis. But when we have standardized questionnaires, which were many times standardized in Slovakia, and when we look if they work in this population, these are standard matters that are taught at bachelor courses. We cannot have an argument, it's stupid. You need to put an argument that is relevant and matter-of-factly. This was a stupid tool and stupidly analyzed. For example, ICENC's questionnaire. When someone collects data, we can look whether ICENC's questionnaire works for Slovak children as assumed. It needs to be done, I agree. But to declare it's stupid because in 37 someone collected something, that's not an argument. Mr. Matula, I just wanted a factual remark, and the title is Poor Students. Compared to the years when I went to the university, their number is perhaps 5 times now. But my question is, why each student needs to do difficult research every other day? people come and seek data and want to do some diploma thesis, they copy from each other, etc., etc. That's a question or recommendation to the academic community that, in my opinion, we just unnecessarily make the lives of students difficult, because under difficult circumstances they collect background data to be able to make a thesis. This is where I see a space for some relief. Is there someone who would like to say something on the use of the data from Composite within the educational sector? I would say that in addition to the academic sphere, we are able to use the information we provide in Composite for directly control organizations such as educational institution and methodological center, where we can share some educational blogs, e-learning and teaching sources, methodological materials, and sharing of information between the pedagogical and professional public, including psychologists. That's one great opportunity that is here. We can also provide information to pedagogists, to teachers, about educational and other psychological aspects of problematic behavior of children at elementary schools. What teachers seldom have available, we are able in this area to assist. Another directly controlled institution we can cooperate with is the State School Inspection, where inspectorate, when we can set relevant diagnostic tools using which we can identify basic problems that would be specified by the Ministry of Education that should be dealt with in the Slovak Republic. We also cooperate with the Ministry of the Interior of the Slovak Republic, because our counseling centers belong to this sector, and the Research Institute is providing methodological guidance to them. Cooperation is opening in this area with the Ministry of Labor, Social Affairs and Family, of course, because the project deals with career orientation of children and youth and preparation for the labor market, which is in the competence of this sector. But the Research Institute creates a portfolio for the children to be correctly oriented in the labor market. The Ministry of Justice is also a sector that can benefit, because our experts, such as the scientific secretary, Mrs. Kopanova, Mr. Matula, work on opinions on children in various aspects. In this area, we can find space for communication too. And I would also say that the Ministry of Health too, because the issue or question of psychological counseling is always on the very thin ice, or bordering of, especially in the legislative area, we are able to communicate with many sectors. So for the future, Composite is open to other sectoral institutions, since I passed freely to intersectoral cooperation. In the framework of the educational sector, we can share information very intensively and effectively, except databases. But Mrs. Smikova could say Slovikova on this, in which area within this sector cooperation can be done, because she works with data information systems. Good afternoon. It's on. Can you hear me? I will try to say something on this cooperation. Yes, we have informational support with regard to the generation of data for counseling facilities for many years, and many pieces of this data at the same time serve for cooperation and communication with the Ministry of Health in the framework of prevention. And in many parts, they are also reported in the National Report for on drugs for the Slovak Republic. There is a comprehensive area of prevention. And since I have this opportunity to speak about this, I would like to very nicely thank all workers of these counseling centers who do a great job in the area of prevention, comprehensive prevention, in addition to providing professional and methodological support to their colleagues, teachers, coordinators of prevention at schools. They also provide very many training groups dealing with groups under risk. They can identify them, and they do a great number of preventive programs which stem from them providing screening and searching for risk groups at school and creating tailored programs which for children are very necessary and important, and they can respond early to avoid getting to the limit of the threat. Mrs. Dianovská. I hope you did not forget what you wanted to say, because the question on you was for the use of composite within the sector of education. I know about you that you are in touch with children. I would be very glad if in the sector of education, all applications that we are processing and filling with data eventually meet in one storage, in one depository, and that we start work with them comprehensively. Because when I look at composite, how it very nicely processes the pupil up to the 9th grade, from another application I will download data, and then I am able to monitor him on the secondary school and see whether it was successful or not. We can set individual parameters through Proforient software. We can follow the professional interests of the pupil, but for the time being I need to do it on paper, and I would be very glad if the data merged in one point so that we can work with them, and then the PhD students will be able to do their job. Is it realistic to expect to merge this data somewhere? Can I answer? Of course. In this discussion, I am an IT person, so I am not able to judge the professional counseling aspect, but I want to point out very good aspects of this data, because this data is not just a survey or one-off data. It's operating data in counseling, the result of the tests of the children. The data was generated 50 years ago and will be generated again, but they were not recorded previously. And since you are collecting it on a detailed level, based on answers to individual questions of the tests, you today even cannot appreciate the importance of this data a couple of years later, because you are collecting it from all tests that are digitized, and we hope that the scope of the tests will be expanded. So we don't even know how precious this data will be in a couple of years. An example of the intersectoral cooperation is that today you have children you are helping in some way. Mr. Matula mentioned 2 cases because he met the people, but in a couple of years or tens of years, you will be able to automatically process, because you will have data from labor office, social insurance company. You will be able to find who is unemployed, from the negative viewpoint, who didn't get out of the trouble. From social insurance company, you will find who got out of the trouble, because there is data when you can see where you can see the income, the job. So when today you will have to wait 10 years for that, but after these years, the data will be ever more valuable. Why Google is free today? Because they get data from you which is 10 times more valuable than what you would pay for the service. If I may, I would come back to data and to the current situation. Perhaps people do not realize how many problematic children we have. When I look at the data which is processed and set into one information system, and we know new data for the school year 2014-15, the centers of pedagogical, psychological counseling and prevention in this year had clients diagnosed over 117,000. Special counseling centers had about 85,000 clients. If we add it up, it's over 190,000. And when we look at all children from 3 years, that's nursery, elementary schools, all types of secondary schools and special schools, there can be about 838,000. We are getting to 23% if I count it well. Can you imagine how many children have problems and what problems these are and what these experts or professionals are confronted with? I welcome very much that Composite brought 29 or 30 digitized tests. This makes their work much more efficient. It is true what the Dr. Smikova said, that in counseling, communication is necessary, cooperation, collaboration with the client is necessary, but I firmly believe that we are halfway and the next stage is coming, because the possibilities of digitizing the tests are there, and we need to make this activity more efficient and to help our children. We are here to help them in early age while it is possible, rather than when it is too late. I am still listening to a very vivid discussion here. Do you not want to ask something? Whoever, any one of you can ask something. It's okay what the previous speakers mentioned. This database will be very useful for the so-called longitudinal research, how in the long term some skills or problems develop, because it will be possible to identify these children. I'm not pointing to the personal number, but when we make a test to a 10 years old child, we do not have a personal number to know which child it is. The child is tested, say, when he's 15. It doesn't have to be the same test, but at the level of some latent ability, the child went down or up, and we can see if there is something systematic, what factors cause that these problems in certain schools, regions, classes, social groups, etc. increase, and in other they decrease, which they are, and then solve it. But when we collect data that you have from 1 to 3,000 of the 10 years old, then you have 1 to 3,000 15 years old, but 3 in the first set doesn't correspond to 3 in the second set, but Composite enables this. Educational tests, international measurement. International measurements are not intended for this and do not do this at all. NUS and PISA pills, they call it, doesn't enable to identify student or school. But in Hungary, I took part at the conference a year ago in Hungary, along with this international testing, they do long-term, longitudinal research of educational capacities where they can identify each and every pupil. It has been on for 8 years. They have 600,000 pupils in a database and their performance in 8 years. You can work with this. When the input-output, you have them and do not have them assigned, we know something is wrong, but we don't know what, we don't know why, and we don't know what to do with it. So this might be a attempt that after some years we could do something like this. What are the structural factors, not only individual child? It's important to help an individual child, but there are structural factors that cause problems to accumulate. What are the problems and what causes them? This is what I see the benefit in the future of the system. I want to link up to Mr. Sprocha. You mentioned this merger of data. We are merging perhaps individual levels of the work, diagnostic work and monitoring work, but we should separate it here. One line is us using what is digitized in working with an individual, with a child. That is the individual psychological work with a child or with a class, perhaps. And what we are talking about now is the use for the methodological improvement of the quality of individual tools or the entire system. And then we have levels of interpretation of use in psychology, sociology, and politics. So at this point, I have a feeling that we all are true, but we start from different premises. I would like to repeat what Eva Smikova mentioned in her presentation. Sometimes I fear that we lose the child in it, the individual, in making sure that it's methodological pure, that the ministry is happy that we investigated or so many children, and those who are giving us the project money, if we fulfill the criteria. When someone tells you, we will give you 15 million euros, but when you have to investigate so many children, or examine so many children, and if you don't fulfill the criterion, you may lose the money. So we should define the maintenance and then discuss with the knowledge that these things can overlap, but also exclude each other mutually. And the last, our experience, in fact, it was the first one when we started with the national project. We did it so that in the framework of this screening, some people know, but class teachers filled in a list of children that did problems to teachers, that they were not able to handle them with pedagogical means, and recommended to the care of our counseling system. And we wanted to compare it with one questionnaire or evaluation scale filled in by the class teacher, why they consider the child that they require this care. A serious questionnaire that a Czech colleague, Mezera, put together. And one good man wrote to some office, and a gentleman called me who was responsible for this and told me that we, in an unauthorized manner, without their approval, we started to research this and included it in the system, and that we were not able to have it assigned to individual names. So we sit down together with them and made an agreement that, okay, the possibility of identification of specific children will be ensured by the list of the children that should be held according to our instructions by the head teachers in the safe would be destroyed, and another person from another sector involved in this. Some imposed a penalty on us that this data was destroyed. And I was asking where these counseling centers will take the money for the penalty from the state budget. And I don't want to say this is stupid, but I don't have a better word. So if it wasn't true, it would be funny. This is how modern civilized society can look like. And I will finish this. It ended up by this fading out because we were not able to agree who made the mistake. And now I can see that it was myself because I leaked it to the public now. So excuse me.
Mr. Greitzer, I'm available if you wanted to join the discussion. We had some guests from abroad today, from 8 countries. We have Mr. Edelman with us, who is from Switzerland. Mr. Edelman, is there a similar product also in your country, or have you been inspired by what you heard today?
No. At the moment, I'm not aware of this similar platform in Switzerland, but I must congratulate you on your current achievement in regards to that. All I could say, of course, the platform allows less standardized tests also to be used or implemented in this platform. I regard this just as a data collection platform with all the large utilities it offers. And then it's just from that point, we, as others would say, should start work and research.
One thing is the product as such, but one more question for Mr. Edelman. Can you imagine using this product also in Switzerland? What is the situation with kids in Switzerland?
Well, the situation with kids is similar as it is here. I mean, you do have teachers having problems with their pupils, requiring consultancy, guidance. So the situation is very comparable. I'm not in the position, because I'm not a psychologist or not involved in the schooling guidance system, because I'm a proponent for a test. So I'm not really in the position to speak for it, but all I could say, it's potentially useful. But I'm not aware of such a large platform at the moment for Switzerland. But it may be my ignorance. Is this clear what I said, or do you have other questions?
Yes, it is all clear to me because I have headphones on, but I don't know what about the others. I'll just briefly repeat what you said, that there is not a similar thing in Switzerland, and that you have similar problems in Switzerland. Well, career options, it's another category that can be influenced by this database. It can happen that a kid or a number of kids will be put into a box, so to say, that these are problematic kids, and that is why they would have only a certain bar to cross, and systematically they cannot go over. So who could respond to that? If I may, good afternoon or early evening. Putting in the box, it's definitely not a good idea. In relation to that, in relation to this question, I would be inclined to say, or inclined to the opinion what Stefan mentioned, that we should not lose a child in all this process. Let me start this way. 2 weeks ago, I was together with my colleague Lenka at the Gaudeamus Fair, and it's an education fair. And we were there on behalf of the Association for Career Counseling, and over those 2 days we talked to dozens and dozens of kids or students from all around Slovakia. I talked to perhaps 30 of them, and one thing that stuck to my mind was that even the fact that they came suggested that they are aware of the fact that something needs to be done, that they have to do something, and the discussions with them showed us one important thing, and that's my personal experience, that what they lack was an opportunity to discuss these things. And it was somewhat curious because there was a lot of noise, there were presentations, and there were music playing. And in spite of all that, in spite of these difficult conditions, they spent these 10 or 20 minutes with us, and they perceived it as something of a great value for them, something beneficial, and we felt that it was really beneficial for them. So in this context, I have to ask, or I wanted to ask, why didn't you do that back in school? You have your psychologists there, or school counselors. Why didn't you do it there? And I asked some of them, have you talked to someone in the school? And they said, well, with whom? Well, your educational counselor. Who's that? So now I'm sort of getting touch on to what Betka was saying. We can have a super exceptional tools, but unless we create conditions for people to use these tools effectively, then it is to no good. We heard that it would save a lot of time, but then the question is, what we will do with all this saved time? Will we have more time to talk to kids? So this is something that is a key. And unless we will be able to resolve this, then let the composite be an ideal tool. It will only be a tool. It would be let's say an X or a tool or an aid, but it should not be the goal, or it should not be the aim itself. And the matter of a long-term or the matter of sustainability, what I lack in a system is the long-term working with kids. We talk about problems, about problematic kids, but we don't speak about how to prevent these problems. So counseling and guidance should have another element to it, the element of prevention. Perhaps if we started to speak about the career development or career counseling from the first grade, as I saw it in Sweden or in Switzerland, they talk about these matters every year, when there are first graders, second graders, up to ninth graders, and then it would prevent the fact that 33% of our graduates from secondary schools end up at the labor offices. So if we do it this way, it would certainly bring fruits. So if I come back to your question, we should talk to our kids or to talk with kids. We should create conditions for the counselors to be able to talk with kids, and if they use in these discussions also the data from the composite, that's great. But it can be done even without that. Thank you. This was very meaningful answer. We in our national project we used for career counseling. We used a tool called Condi, and this tool allows students to find their potential for selecting a career. So now I would like to ask the authors of this test, which was provided by RCV, Czech company, what is the situation in the Czech Republic, and how do you see the cooperation with Slovakia? Well, thank you for the floor. Let me share a story. The story that started back in 2010 in Czech Republic. We have a extra sectorial commission called Career Forum, and they had an idea that they would create an integrated portal for educational counseling. Well, we believed at that time that this is the conclusion, or that this is a good idea. The problem is that this idea just remained on paper. Perhaps you don't find it in Slovakia. But I would like to congratulate you for your courage. Perhaps we don't have that courage in Czech Republic to point problems and to solve them. In the Czech Republic, we know that. The educational counseling doesn't work. Every third child works in a job that they didn't study. And when we look at our research, how kids are deciding about their future occupation. If we look at what they consider the advice of a counseling or counselor is somewhere on the 11th or 12th place. So, and it's the same thing in Slovakia. And we pointed out that that these counselors lack tools. But in Czech Republic, we want to be politically correct, and we didn't take any further steps with that. We started to deal with the fact who would develop the tool, whether it would be a part of a project or whether it would be a public tender. So we started discussions back in 2010, and then in 2012, we transferred the money or the resources available for that to the Ministry of Social Affairs. And now we can look with envy to Slovakia, because what we talked about back in 2010, it now works here. And this is a great currency, so to say, because you had courage to develop the tool. We can now discuss whether or not it is ideal, but you have a tool, and elsewhere in other countries they are just discussing it. And the second thing that I would like to mention is the sustainability of the tool. In the Czech Republic, we're using our diagnostics, and unfortunately they have to do the diagnostics on the level of the regions. As it turned out, today, the most handicapped pupils are those who paradoxically are not handicapped at all, because these tools are focusing on socially excluded or various problematic children from various social system. But those kids that have no problem cannot benefit from these tools, and there's a great room for such a tool, and it's great that it was done using modern way, because now it allows you to collect data, and it allows you to help also to the kids that they seemingly don't have a problem. Because what we hear from the parents that have kids with no problems, they are saying, finally, someone is paying attention to us as well. So it would be great if this tool is used for all the kids, not only the kids with special educational needs, and then we can catch up the rest of Europe. I would just like to add, my colleague from the Czech Republic, I can understand what he said. Also, at our Ministry of Education in the Czech Republic, when they asked me what's new, I would like to come back to the fact that you had the courage. We work together with these tools also in Poland, and when we discussed what is new and what new things I saw, I mentioned this national project, and they tell me, well, we have been talking about this for several years, but it is not implementable. So we ended up also with the same discussions in the UK with the colleagues that we have there. So I would just like to bring your attention to the fact that you managed to do something great, something that other countries fail to do, and now it is up to you either to sustain it or not. And one last thing, and now when you took us as a partner that supplied the diagnostic tools. We are not separated. I see the synergies. It's not that we would develop a tool, supply to you, and then you would use it somehow. But you work together closely with subcontractors. You talk about the sharing of the data, and this is not an ordinary way of doing things. Usually, the relations are somewhat remote, but now there is a potential to bring these parties together. In this relation, I would like to say that we have representatives of DAVS, that's the diagnostic tool, the Life of Colors, and also another company who have a diagnostic tool based on colors. Could you tell us what you could share as two partners? Well, certainly yes. What we are planning to do is operational study where we would use not only our two tools but also some other standard questionnaire tools, and we would like to put it aside or next to each other and then discuss the benefits or flaws, and we talked what should be the third reference tool, and we would like to use some international tools. So it would be great if together with you we select a tool that is recognized not only in the Czech Republic but also in Slovakia and elsewhere. So if we will be given a room, I want to say that we will help you, but the composite could gain on importance. If I would also like to pass the floor to Mr. Edelman. How do you see the research from your point of view from the Institute in Switzerland?
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the chance, because we also, DAP Services and our institute are promoting nonverbal tests which have low scientific reputation, and of course these gives us the chances and I will refer to this tomorrow, to demonstrate the scientific solidity of the tests applied, especially when we compare it to other standardized verbal tests that have a higher scientific reputation. And it's our intention to show and to put more science into this discussion, and at least to show equivalence in the methods that are applied. So in regards to that point, we really are on the level of scientific cooperation and scientific studies. And we, of course, hope to, as you have this platform, to to enable that you also, if these tools prove to be very suitable, that you can make profit of that. And just a short comment, because you mentioned this, Switzerland is very peculiar in regards to being less centralized. So all the different cantons have a high supremacy in regards to guidance, especially also in educational aspects. And that's why we have a very scattered situation, not a centralized platform to utilize. And psychologists or teachers then have to seek advice through internets or other channels from universities in Switzerland that are very proponents and advocates in providing guidance. That's the way I see it.
Thank you. Thank you. The sponsor of this task is Dr. Matula. I would like to ask you for a brief comment. There is a cooperation emerging, but Mr. Edelman, Dr. Edelman will be mentioning it tomorrow, so I would leave it for tomorrow then. But before passing the floor to the director of the Pressure Center, I would like to say one thing. We have now been talking in the last half hour on methods and improvement of methods. I just want to point out that my internal conviction is that a leap occurred, a qualitative change occurred of the premises of counseling and psychological work in this area. There was a technological revolution, because thanks to the European Union we got so much money that this technological leap could be implemented. What will happen next, we don't know, because we don't know if the money will continue to be available. I would very much like to see money for continuation of this project. I would very like to be a good prophet to say that there will be there, but God only knows, as they used to say in the Western Europe. And in the framework of this technological progress, I would like to say that from this viewpoint, it's a total nonsense to separate career counseling from the so-called biodromal counseling. That's a Slovak invention, Slovak terminus technicus, where the psychological work, the objective of it should be psychological help to children in development, in intellectual, personality, emotional, and choice of profession development. At once someone comes, and we will be doing it from 14 years of age, the career counseling, regardless of the fact that children who need this and get this, that this is not linked to this. So I would like to propose, if there are any conclusion of this seminar, to declare this, that this is the opinion of European experts, that the so-called career counseling is integral part of psychological guidance to children who have some problems. When a problem appears in one area, it influences the other areas as well. So this is what I would like to point out. We shouldn't forget not to pour out the child with the bath. I don't know what it means, but I like it very much. I wouldn't like to ask a question, but I would like to voice a statement. Counseling system in Slovakia, in educational system, has been in operation for more than 50 years. And until now, we never had a project at the national level. So I would like to very much thank the creators of the project, all employees, the managing authority, and to us who participated in the project and helped fulfill the tasks, that we were able to implement something like this here. I remember the beginnings when obstacles were put in front of us, and I perceived this as attacks, that so much money, what it is going to be good for whom? And I realized that schools in Slovakia for project money, equipped with computers and interactive blackboards, computer classes, that they innovated internal equipment and they were doing thermal insulation. And when we were to get money for our project, no one could understand this. How come? So I really want to say that after all these years, where the initial stages were very difficult, that we all managed to do this and to arrive at such a great result. So really, I will say big thanks for creating something like this. And I have a big hope and a fantasy that in the framework of sustainability of the project, it would be great if at the national level a continuation of this project would be adopted, and if it could involve not only elementary schools, pre-primary education, the nurseries, but for us to be able to do this also with the secondary school students. I can imagine sitting down and digital testing a child not only between 6 and 11, 15 years, but when we have secondary school students or even university school students, where we work with them in the centers and we guide them for several years and do them counseling and therapy, so that it does not limit me, so that I could be able to sit down and diagnose the person and get some personality profile, to do a high quality work with them, to do psychological counseling and counseling in the choice of profession and career counseling, because this cannot be done. A line cannot be simply drawn between this, because our profession is multidimensional. So I believe or hope that there will be a next project which will continue, that money will be found for centers which deserve this, because as Dr. Slovikova mentioned, we really do a lot and many activities and at professional level. We just need some support with personnel and finance. So again, big thanks. I will respond to this. Vierka, I am very happy that this statement was made because for several years we have been perceiving as if there were only schools in the education sector. No one even realized how you are equipped with respect to infrastructure, if you have sufficient connectivity, if you can ensure some activities. I, in person, am very happy because in the longer term, I have been cooperating with the system and I perceive this as damage being done to you. I hope myself, because I see this as just a halfway, because we didn't get where we should get and we have a lot to do. It is necessary to digitize further tests, to use further methodologies, and what is very important and necessary, but I will be talking about this tomorrow at the conference, as it was shown by further findings, whether it's screening or process analysis of education counseling facilities, what is necessary to be done from the viewpoint of standardization and central applications and other activities, so that the system really is secured and improved. I cannot help but come back to one point which I may not have said quite clearly. Centers of pedagogical counseling and prevention have several key processes, and in addition to professional care for a client, they provide an entire comprehensive prevention in the system and professional methodological activities. And speaking about this is the supportive activity of the school, and it concerns pupils, teachers and parents. Mr. Kanowski, I will follow up to what you mentioned and the colleague, what he mentioned, key things, because I was praising too much and I worry when I praise too much. A big problem was about the trust, which you mentioned, that children have a problem with this, which appears in quantitative and qualitative data. Children do not trust educational counselor, class teacher. We don't know why this happens. We do not examine this because we don't have these kinds of research, but if we don't have a tool that collects, if we don't have the elementary trust of children in the school teachers and counselors, when you collect data in quantitative questionnaires, anonymous questionnaires, or qualitative structured interviews with children and parents, they either do not know about it, and if they know, they refuse. Sometimes individual children are found, but the level of trust is very low, and this is much more a serious problem than having diagnostic tests, because it's no use having perfect tools if we don't know what to do with the problem. We are not there from the universities are not able to go and solve the problem. There are class teachers, that's the front line. We are just logistic forces, but this is a difficult work. I don't want to say that someone does their work wrong, but to combine this research and data which is collected in composite with qualitative research, to go to the field, to train people not only to collect quantitative data and to process questionnaires, but qualitative research, not only educational counselors to talk with children. That's also support work, to collect qualitative data in a serious manner. We should think of this in the future, to reveal the causes how come that this happens? How come that whatever you do, the educational counselor or school psychologist is second from the end? Either they don't know. The children say they would never tell them if they are bullied. This is a very serious problem which we should deal with. When this test reveals something, we should think of tools and people who should deal with these problems. Of course, I don't know what to do with it. I'm not an expert in this, but I just know this problem is there. But someone should propose some solution and base it on refer to the fact that the children do not trust them. If you permit me to respond, I will take the floor myself. I am here on behalf of the educational counselors. This is why we were doing a research among 9th graders who received the counseling care, also thanks to Composite, because we needed the educational counselors to want to use Composite as a tool for work and to prove that when something is sped up, the time could be used for talking to children. And we had about 9,000 pupils with special needs. And these 9th graders indicated the educational counselor as the second most important person in the choice of profession after their parents, which is really a leap. When they have 100 minutes for 6 software applications and 100 children. It's ridiculous to say that there is a counseling process, but these people were working for free at the time where we need it. No one will ever pay this for them, but they managed or proved what we wanted to prove, that when there are high-quality tools and there is time, the children talked with them 3, 4, 5, 6 times. They felt they were talking to a person who can be trusted, to someone who would help them and who found the time. The second thing is that this is a system matter. We cannot want the educational counselor to sponsor the state. So I thank Composite for making the work of educational counselor more visible. Thank you. I have a comment because in the Czech Republic there is the same discussion underway. There are several causes. In our country, educational counselor doesn't have tools to be able to provide counseling with. In the better case, the educational counselor describe problems but not the solution. When I send someone to a psychologist, people confuse it with a psychiatrist, and this is the vicious circle. There are no tools, thereby educational counselor is a person who does it as a part-time job, sometimes next to his class teacher activity. And the second problem that cannot be solved very quickly, this educational counseling and the level or the weight is caused by the fact that there are very high costs for wrong types of schools. Someone goes to a wrong school and finds the school is not good for them. And what happens? Nothing. After the school, they go to the labor office, the society pays, and they live with their parents. So unless the cost of wrong choice of profession is so high that it's worth seeing an educational counselor, we will forever be dealing with this problem of educational counseling not being as useful as it should be. There is one more comment. Let me respond from the position of the district authority in Košice. I'm happy to see this open discussion, and maybe thanks to Dr. Matula perhaps, I would like to say something like this. I was sorry to learn about this project from directors of pedagogical psychological center counseling centers, which I am in charge of. Despite that, I think this is very useful. But what I would like to say is that we saw when this project was introduced how many I would like to say if in the framework of this project the personnel of these counseling centers was considered, because this is related to the money that you mentioned, and whether it was analyzed or because the responses from individual counseling centers were that when some screenings and examinations are done, that we need personnel for this, and in the region of Košice we don't have it.
Thank you for the question. Well, the personnel and financial management of the European project is not mapped by personal needs of individual regions. However, this is a good idea for a new project so that we can prepare the personnel metrics. We know very well what is the situation in Eastern Slovakia, and we should pay attention especially to the human potential of people that have to conduct these counseling activities, perhaps to a larger extent than in Western Slovakia. Mr. Greiter, you wanted to add something? I can hand over my mic. Well, I have to add something to that. Eurodac Center initiated a meeting of the representatives of the managers of the projects that are being completed this month, and more or less were all related to career counseling with the overall value of 130 euros, and then this WoodPub project costs only 15 million. So this WoodPub project, the composite, but we also forgot about the second leg or second pillar, and that is the counseling as a play or by play. That after this project, there will be a physical outcome out of the six that gathered around the discussion table. I dare to say that the others, there was no output or no outcome left after them. And even if we didn't invest a single more euro into composite, then thanks God for that anyway, because it would be able to serve for many years to come, even without further investments. Well, the time has run out, and we also prolonged our discussion. It was a meaningful discussion, and we would continue tomorrow. We highlighted some topics for tomorrow. We are summarizing. We're at the end of the project, and we're finalizing the last activities. We're comparing to other projects, and we are also receiving great support or all praise for the management, and also praise from the people in the regional centers. We are collecting praise. We are collecting awards. In spite of all that, we didn't get an answer from the Ministry of Education as to whether this would continue. This is a project. It has a great benefit, a great added value, as it was discussed at the ITAPAC Congress. They all confirmed that the small research institute WoodPub made a huge step in the digitization of processes that are often set up by large companies or large organizations. So we get to the level of projects such as electronic ID or 3D authorities. The Composite got to the first 5 best projects implemented in Slovakia, and it is a great honor and great praise for the work of the entire team that put their creativity and their talent into it. The dream that we had, we fulfilled, although we went only half of the way, as my colleague said. I believe that good ideas will find their room for implementation, and that together we will be able to carry on with this project, because we all believe that it is a meaningful project. So to conclude, I would like to thank to the management and the steering board of this project, everyone who participated to it, who worked on it, the design office, who worked on the administration and all the financial matters. And then I would like to thank also to the suppliers that were not ordinary contractors. They really contributed to improving the processes. This is just a pilot project. We're all learning as we go, but we know what we have done. We learned to, for example, to write projects, to cooperate. I would like to thank to all the partners that participated to the research, such as Lichero Institute or the University of Comenius. They started to participate in this project. I would also like to thank to all the managers in the project centers in the regions that you are sitting in this room, but also watching us online. And then counselors in schools, every one of you put a lot of effort into working with us in this project. I would also like to thank the parents that showed their interest to work in this project, and I would like this great gratitude to go everyone. But we're doing it all for our kids, so I wish them to be happy, healthy, and proud to live in Slovakia, to find a meaningful career in Slovakia. So I would like to say goodbye to everyone watching us online. Tomorrow we will have some other parts that would be shown online. For those of you who are interested in learning more, you can visit our website composite.sk. Where all the experts that participated are willing to share the best practices that we achieve. So thank you, and looking forward to meeting you and seeing you again. Goodbye.